Okay, so again, this is the workspace. This is the latest version of Illustrator. I guess I'm going to go through just going over the difference here between a vector-based graphic first and foremost, vector and raster-based graphic. So here what I did was I actually dragged a JPEG file into Illustrator, okay? I'm going to zoom in on this as far as I can. So this is a logo that I found online, Doc Martens logo. And so like when I zoom in on this thing, you're going to see here on the very edges, you see how it's really faded and stuff. Like it goes from black to like kind of blackish white, kind of blackish yellow, all different types of pixels here, right? So if I were to print this document and really increase the size of it to say like a billboard, for instance, and then we'll be able to, let's say we blew it up really huge on this wall, you're going to see artifacting on the edges of the logo. It's not going to be sharp and crisp. It's going to lose resolution and quality. So that's my reason why I'll typically change a logo to a vector graphics, because a logo, really, you're going to blow this thing up any size. It can be as small as a business card size, even smaller, or as large as a banner on a building or something like that. So you're going to want to make your logo files versatile. Also, Doc Martens yellow, right? You're going to want your logo file to enable the brand owner to use a Pantone color. So typically Doc Martens yellow is going to be a Pantone color. Let's just call it Pantone color yellow, right? Doc Martens yellow. If this is a raster-based graphic, that means that I can print it on a 4-color press. So cyan, magenta, yellow, black press. Well, that press in one region of the country could have different intensities of those 4 different colors than a press on another side of the country, having those 4 different intensities of colors. So if Doc Martens wanted to make sure that their yellow was consistent across the board, no matter where this thing was printed, they would print this logo using the Doc Martens yellow. And if this is a raster graphic, this isn't going to be Doc Martens yellow. It's going to be cyan. It's going to be maybe a little bit of magenta, mostly yellow dots here. And on different presses, that could create a different tone of yellow, not perfect. And then even the edges of this here, you're going to have a different CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black conversion of dots here than you are kind of in the middle here. So what you're going to want to really do when you're working with your logos, or any logos for that matter, is to create a vector version of it. So I'm actually going to make a copy of this. So I'm going to Alt-click and drag this over here to this side, so I have a copy of each one. And I'm going to actually hit S and then click somewhere on the document to add this anchor point here in blue, and you can see. And then I'm going to click and drag towards it, holding my Shift key to constrain the proportions of it. Okay, so just to make it a lot smaller on the desktop. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here. And the first thing I'm going to do with this logo, since I'm working with something that's not native vector, I'm going to actually click this image trace button once I have this document in here. So if I hit image trace, I'm going to let this the software work itself in. But what I can do is actually hit Command Y, and this shows me the invisibles. Okay, this shows me the points and paths of this document. So when I hit Command Y in Illustrator, you can see that I don't have any points and paths for this logo in this document whatsoever. This is essentially still an image that's pasted into Illustrator. It's still a raster-based image. I'll Command Y again, and this is the same thing. So this is no different than this in terms of what's going on in Illustrator, okay? The step that I'm missing is actually expanding this. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. What I have to do is actually hit expand, and what Illustrator is going to do is actually take this image and create points and paths out of it. Okay, so I'm going to take this drop down here under tracing result. Actually, I'm going to move over to preset. So preset here on the left gives you a couple options here of my tracing results. So I can go to black and white logo, and that's going to give me a very similar result that I had under default. Let me try technical drawing. It gives it a slightly different one here, which is way off from what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something as close to the Doc Martens logo as possible. So I'm going to try 3 colors. I'm doing this, rather than choosing a selection that gives me more colors, because I want to simplify this graphic as much as possible. I don't want it to have too many colors than it already needs, because then it's going to make it really hard for me to isolate all of the same yellow. I don't want like a Doc Martens yellow and then like a Doc Martens orangey yellow that's like somewhere in the middle. I want it to really create something that is very simplified as I can get it. And so as I look at both of these graphics, I'm pretty close. And so that option was 3 colors. And I'll look at 16 colors and see what difference that makes. And granted, at this point, this is still like a pasted image. Command Y. Let me simplify that back to 3. Because this little edge here is kind of strange. And that'll work. So, so essentially, this is a pretty complex logo compared to most logos out there, but this is really close to the original. So I'm going to get rid of the original and then start from here. So again, when I Command Y this document here, you're going to see that it's not expanded yet. But when I hit the expand button, this is going to actually create points and paths out of the image. So now I have a vector-based graphic made out of points and paths in the background. When I Command Y again and look at the actual image, it looks pretty much like where I started with the original logo, except now it's a vector version of it. So what I'm going to do is hit the keyboard shortcut M, or it's going to actually select the shape tool here. When I select this rectangle tool, I can see all of the different shape options that I have under here. So if I select, like, say, the ellipse tool, here, that shortcut here is L. So whatever your shortcuts are going to be identified next to the selection in the menus here. So I'm just going to take a rectangle tool, and typically what I do is I draw a giant rectangle around my image if it has a white background and I'm working on a white background, and then I change the color of this shape to something that's going to be really noticeable and pop off of a background. And then so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to select this large box, and I'm going to go, actually I'm going to go to Object and then Arrange, and I'm going to go Send to Back. The shortcut version for this is Command-Shift left bracket. Command-Shift right bracket is going to bring the object to the front. Command-Shift left bracket is going to bring the object to the back. So I'm sending that object to the back because I want to see what my white space is around this logo. I want this logo to actually be transparent. I don't want it to be placed on a white box in the background, okay? So there's a couple ways of doing that. But first, what I'm going to have to do is actually use my Pathfinder tool to break up all of these shapes from each other to make them selectable. And be able to remove them from each other. So what I'm going to do is click that object, and I'm going to go to Window Pathfinder. And what Pathfinder is going to do is going to give me all of these interesting options underneath it. So I have this whole entire image selected with all the points and paths within the logo. And there's this option here under Pathfinder, it's called Divide. So if I hit that, it's going to break up all of the points and paths and separate them from each other as if I'm like working on a puzzle or something, right? So I'm going to move that over here. And so the divide option in Pathfinder is this very bottom left one here, and when you hover over, it's going to say divide on it. And then so once I select that, I'm going to go into my tools palette here, and well, first, what I'm going to do is click off the pasteboard so I don't have anything selected on my pasteboard. I want to kind of start from scratch, so you can either select off of your pasteboard, otherwise you can just hit Command and click anywhere, and it's going to deselect what you have currently selected. And so what I'm going to do is select this magic wand tool over here. And so the magic wand tool is a tool that's found in actually no, I'm going to select. Wait, is that the tool? Yeah. What I'm going to do is select that tool, and what it does in Illustrator is slightly different from what it's going to do in Photoshop when we go over it. In Photoshop, what the magic wand tool does is it says select a tolerance between 1 and I forget the other number, but you can basically use that tool, select a pixel on the screen, and any pixel within a tolerance that's very similar to that pixel, it'll spread the selection on it. In Illustrator, what the magic wand tool does, and that's probably easier seen than talked about, so I'll show you that next week. But in Illustrator, what I love about the magic wand tool is I can actually click on an area, and let me just actually make sure that I deselect. First thing what I'm going to have to do is actually make sure that this object is broken apart. So what I'm going to do is go Command-Shift-G, and what Command-Shift-G does is it ungroups everything. So click on that logo if you're following along, and then just hit Command-Shift-G several times onto it, just to make sure that it's that it's not grouped together. And then if you take, hold on a second. I'm selecting that background. Yeah, okay. Something was going on here. So after I hit it with Command-Shift-G a few times, and I selected the magic wand tool again, oh, my background is grouped in. Hold on a second. I'm going to move my background over. If I take that magic wand tool, well, for some reason it's holding my background in there, so I'm just going to delete the background, and I'm going to redraw another one. So if I take the wand tool and kind of hover over that white part that I was just selecting, I must have grouped them together inadvertently. And then I hit delete. You can see like what it does is basically selects all of the properties of the artwork that are the same. So in this case, when I clicked the magic wand tool over this white part without any stroke on it, it selected all of the white parts without any strokes rather than me individually clicking and deleting every single white segment in there. So I'll kind of show you why it's more efficient by just duplicating this for a second. I'll duplicate it again. Duplicating quickly is just a kind of select, hold the Alt key, and then drag and then release. So here's the old school way of doing it. If I hit the A button, the direct selection tool, I can then select this piece and get rid of it, select that, get rid of it, and so on and so forth. It takes a lot longer, and then you miss stuff inadvertently. But if I were to take the wand tool and just select the white piece, it's going to get rid of all the white pieces together. If I were to do the same thing for the yellow, it would just do the same thing. It would delete all the yellow content. So that's really the difference between the magic wand tool and Illustrator, and you'll see in Photoshop the difference between that too. So essentially now we went from this point, which is this doc here, which already actually deleted the white background. So now we have this document or this logo isolated onto a transparent background. So this is actually something that I can then drag into InDesign, or I can put this on. I can drag this into InDesign. I can save this as just a logo document and file place into InDesign or what have you. You can drag this into Photoshop, and we'll go over what the benefits are of working with vector graphics in Photoshop. But that, in a nutshell, is that.
So if you had a logo that was just black and white and didn't have any white parts on it, you could just make it more white when you do the image tracer.
I don't think so. I think it's actually, if your logo was black and white and had a white background, then and you did an image trace, it would actually trace that white background in there.
Well, there's a check mark when you do the image trace to like read the whitest transparency because it
Oh,
used it transferring in this collaborative project where I'm building like a typeface and
Oh.
and so then
Oh.
I send me their sketches and then I vectorize them.
Oh, okay. Oh, so there's a checkbox?
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Let me drag this in.
more white underneath like the advanced menu.
Okay, so let me save this real quick. I'm gonna go File, Save As. Oh, did we just now? Yeah. So this is if I go Command Y, this is like a vector graphic. And actually, I'm glad you pointed that out because what I actually wanted to do was sort of zoom in on the edge where that yellow was from before. And then, show you essentially that the quality of the edge is not like faded like it was in the raster graphic. So this is when you think of that stamp idea of a Pantone color. This is how you can get that 100% Pantone color. This is what they prefer as far as like on press when you're working with Pantone colors, is to use that vector graphic. It's just what the standard is now. But let me go back and let me save this real quick. That's all right. And so let me go back and hit OK here. And then just drag and retrace this.
With the logo like that, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that because you use the white bouncing.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right, totally. But sometimes I might just want to do that because typically what I would do just to like make it easier on myself is I would like draw a white shape behind the logo and I would just group them together. So it'd almost be like a, yeah, to just be,
Quicker than the other process.
yeah, right. So yeah, so let me go ahead and just do that so we can capture it here in our demo. So everyone, if it's useful to them in their logos, then certainly we want to capture that. So basically, what I did was actually drag the JPEG in and placed it in there in the document, just as we did before. But instead of using the Pathfinder tool and any of those other tools, what I'm going to do is just hit Image Trace. And correct me if I'm wrong as I'm going through the process.
I don't know where it is when you do it on top, but I have it as a window.
As a what? I'm sorry.
Window.
Oh, image trace window. Okay. Oh, okay, I see. So let me undo. All right. And then so what you have here is a checkbox under ignore white right there. Is that right? Okay. And then you have, let's see, your preset, 3 colors. So this is kind of the preset that I did the other way with the menu up at the top. Okay. Not sure. Well, let's see. Yeah, no, it did that for sure. So I just hit the ignore white there, and then you can kind of do the same thing in less steps essentially. But the only difference really is that you're going to want to go to Window and Image Trace. So this is going to open up that Image Trace dialog box. which is something that I've never really actually used before. So thank you for sharing that. So at this point, then, my assumption is what you want to do is actually, and what you'll definitely want to do is hit expand. Because if I hit Command Y, this is still a preview of a traced graphic at this point. So when I hit Command Y again and I jump out of that invisible mode, you'll just want to hit expand, and then this is going to be hit Command Y again, a vector-based graphic, points and paths. So, all right, thank you for sharing that.
So you want the light and bouncing to be right?
If you think it's easier for you to work with, if you're going to use this logo on, I would maybe consider that. Like if I were you, I would just probably do something like this. Yeah, like I would just use my pen tool and I'm just kind of roughing it in, just like something like that. But now here's the, and then, so once I have that traced out, I'm going to do Command Shift left bracket. I'm just going to throw this graphic in the back. But what you'll really want to do if you start dragging this and dropping this into any other software is I would just Command G. So like if I move the top one, the bottom one goes with it, so I'm grouping them together. But yeah, basically. And then, yeah, that's it. Now that's if you're... That's if you are starting with something that's not a vector native graphic. I won't save that. I'm just going to